This is the second part from the story. Sometime later, during a swimming lesson, Jinwoo tried to harm Hosu by holding his head underwater, but Soo-young intervened just in time. In the changing room, Jinwoo angrily brought up the biscuits, hinting at what he knew about Hosu. As they walked to class, Jinwoo continued to suggest he had leverage over Hosu. However, Soo-young stepped in to defend Hosu, sparking a heated debate between them, drawing attention from other students. Shortly after, Hosu explained that nobody dared to confront Jinwoo due to his influence in school. Hosu then warned Soo-young that challenging Jinwoo might affect biscuit sales. Not long after, Soo-young faced ongoing harassment, finding her desk vandalized upon entering the classroom and receiving no respect from other students. Despite this, Soo-young focused on studying for an upcoming exam by eating half a biscuit and then memorizing the answer key. However, the biscuit's effects made everyone too relaxed, hindering Soo-young's ability to sleep due to remembering all the answers. On the day of the exam, Soo-young confidently filled in the answers and ranked first in the school, earning a transfer from Class F to Class S. Seeing this, the Class F homeroom teacher was somewhat incredulous and attempted to protest to the vice principal. However, the vice principal defended Soo-young, insisting there was no leak of the exam. Instead, the teacher was instructed to focus on managing their students, as now student positions were based on ranking. Meanwhile, as Soo-young joined Class S, other students viewed her with suspicion due to her perfect scores in all subjects. When Soo-young entered Class S, Soo-young was given a difficult exam by Hee-jin to test her abilities. Because due to Soo-young's presence, Hee-jin's initial rank 5 in Class S plummeted to rank 10. Furthermore, Hee-jin also did this to address doubts about her achievements to other students. Although Soo-young worked on the exam using the answer key, surprisingly, she was able to answer the questions. The night before the incident, Soo-young was trying to make amends with Jinwoo to boost their biscuit sales. She also suspected Jinwoo might be the chef, the brains behind the biscuit business. Soo-young invited Jinwoo to work together and even proposed they become a couple. After that incident, Jinwoo asked Soo-young out on a date, but before leaving, Soo-young took Jinwoo to one of the empty classrooms to meet Da-yoon, who helped gather data on students interested in joining their study group. As the evening progressed, Soo-young and Jinwoo had dinner together. Jinwoo, curious about Soo-young's dreams, asked while they ate biscuits, but Soo-young didn't answer, turning the question back to Jinwoo. When Jinwoo also refused to share, Soo-young suggested they stop being curious about it. Then, Soo-young changed the subject, suggesting they take photos together. Sometime later, Jinwoo uploaded their photo together, which made Hee-jin jealous. However, Hosu remained calm and didn't try to comfort Hee-jin. On their way home, Jinwoo felt a bit jealous seeing Soo-young replying to a message from Hosu. Back at the dormitory, Soo-young and Hosu discussed biscuit marketing strategies. It turned out the study club Soo-young created was just a cover to boost sales. Later, they went back to their dorm rooms, but Soo-young couldn't sleep because she kept hearing the sound of biscuits and started to become addicted. Unable to resist, Soo-young eventually ate the biscuits in the toilet to avoid being caught by Hee-jin. The next day, Soo-young managed to focus on studying. Later, Sung-pil approached Soo-young for a chat, asking about the study club. Although Soo-young explained it in detail, Sung-pil remained somewhat suspicious because Soo-young also held private counseling sessions afterward. However, Soo-young easily deceived Sung-pil. In reality, the private counseling sessions were just a way to boost biscuit sales. After getting some information from Soo-young, Sung-pil met with his superior, Do-hoon, to discuss the progress of the biscuit investigation. Sung-pil suspected Jinwoo as the chef behind the biscuit business, as he seemed the most suspicious so far. But he couldn't confirm it, which angered Do-hoon. In his office, Do-hoon warned Sung-pil to quickly find out who the chef was, or he would face consequences just like Jae-yoon. Hearing that, Sung-pil could only promise once again that he would find the chef as soon as possible. While at school, Soo-young was enjoying her time with Da-yoon and Hosu. Hosu observed Soo-young's happiness as she had many friends. Suddenly, Soo-young bumped into Sung-gil, her former manager from the factory. Sung-gil questioned why Soo-young was at school, and she explained that she worked there as a janitor, requesting him not to inform the teachers. Sung-gil accepted without suspicion. Unexpectedly, Sung-pil arrived and Sung-gil mentioned that Soo-young used to work under him. Meanwhile, Ho-soo asked Da-yoon about Soo-young's whereabouts. Da-yoon mentioned seeing Soo-young with an older man. Hearing that, Ho-soo immediately called Soo-young, but Soo-young's phone was left behind. On the other hand, Soo-young was taken to Sung-pil's room to talk. Sung-pil confirmed that Soo-young deliberately took over her sister's role as a biscuit marketer to help her wake up from a coma, mentioning the chef. Soo-young was startled when Sung-pil revealed his police ID, apologizing and showing her the biscuit business data provided by Min-young. Sung-pil admitted his fault, acknowledging that Min-young became a victim because of him. He sought to repay Min-young by proposing to work together with Soo-young to apprehend the chef. Initially hesitant, Soo-young agreed after realizing Min-young had been protecting him. After leaving Sung-pil's room, Soo-young was approached by Ho-soo, who returned Soo-young's phone left behind earlier. Soo-young then visited Min-young, feeling guilty after hearing Sung-pil's story, and apologized for everything. Shortly after, Soo-young informed Ho-soo about needing to leave school soon, advising him to focus on studies and act as if he didn't know about the biscuits, because Soo-young wanted to complete a mission with an intel agent at the school. Before meeting Ho-soo at the moment, it turns out that Soo-young and Sung-pil had planned to uncover the chef and his biscuit recipe. As a first step, Sung-pil tasked Soo-young with gathering information in the laundry room. Back to the present, after meeting Ho-soo, Soo-young headed to the laundry room to carry out the mission. She pretended to offer a list of new customers, fearing her phone might be hacked if she sent messages via chat. However, Soo-young's efforts were not successful because Won-ju immediately told her to leave if there was no need for anything. Undeterred, Soo-young secretly followed Won-ju, who was heading to a locker in a mall. Just as Soo-young trailed Won-ju out of the place, Jin-woo intervened, urging Soo-young into the car. Jin-woo revealed that Won-ju's actions were a trap, and they had been followed by Ji-ji, indicating that the chef already knew of Soo-young's betrayal. Eventually, Jin-woo and Soo-young arrived at the art gallery. Jin-woo asked about Soo-young's dreams again while eating biscuits, offering to reveal the chef's true identity in exchange. But if Soo-young lied again, then Jin-woo would not tell her. Feeling the weight of honesty, Soo-young immediately shared her dream, a life much like the one she was living now, with school, nice clothes, good food, many friends, and a romantic relationship. However, she didn't want to return to the dark past with Min-young. Essentially, Soo-young wished to remain true to herself. Soo-young's revelation made the atmosphere somber. Ji-won immediately stated that the chef was Ho-soo, citing his suspicious behavior. Soo-young then realized that Ho-soo hadn't been searching for a cure for Min-young, but had tricked her instead. Meanwhile, Ho-soo was at a friend's house, celebrating their success in getting into a US university, receiving 300,000 won as a gift. However, he was interrupted by his mother's nurse, complaining about her condition. Reluctantly, Ho-soo sent the money to ensure his mother's care. In the past, Ho-soo arrived home and felt suspicious that someone had infiltrated because some items had been moved. Unexpectedly, his father appeared, taking all of Ho-soo's savings before fleeing. His father then fled to a place where Do-hoon and his subordinates were researching biscuit recipes. However, the police had already arrived, so Do-hoon disposed of the biscuit research data in a flash drive and threw it out of the window. After that, Do-hoon intended to burn the place to eliminate the evidence. On the other hand, Ho-soo could only resign himself to seeing his savings disappear, but he ended up getting the valuable recipe for high cookie. Returning to Soo-young, after discovering that Ho-soo was the chef, Jin-woo explained why he met the chef. In the past, Jin-woo had a rare illness that caused him severe pain. Then, at one point, Ho-soo realized this and immediately gave him a biscuit, which made Jin-woo feel better after eating it. Despite Jin-woo's story, Soo-young still didn't believe that Ho-soo was the chef. The next day, Soo-young confronted Ho-soo, demanding the truth about being the chef. Initially, Ho-soo denied it, but Soo-young insisted he eat 2 biscuits, assuming that the chef had the antidote. Soo-young hoped the chef could awaken Min-young from her coma with the antidote. Despite Ho-soo's resistance, Soo-young eventually forced him to eat the biscuits. On the flip side, Do-hoon returned to torment Ja-yoon and threatened harm to his family. Meanwhile, Soo-young finally accepted that Ho-soo was indeed the chef who hadn't discovered the biscuit antidote. Feeling betrayed by Ho-soo's actions, Soo-young plotted retaliation. After seeing everything Ho-soo had done up to now, with Jin-woo's help, they captured Ho-soo in a room, planning to confront him the next day. On the other hand, Sung-pil arrived at Do-hoon's headquarters and was interrogated about the biscuit recipe by the frightened Ja-yoon. However, Sung-pil acted as if he didn't know Ja-yoon. Soon after, Soo-young called Sung-pil, informing him of finding the chef but refused to reveal the identity as there was no antidote for Min-young. Therefore, Soo-young wouldn't hand over the chef to Sung-pil right away because she needed time to think about her decision. Upon hearing this, Sung-pil immediately hung up and excused himself to meet Soo-young. Sung-pil also asked for 3 days to resolve the issue. However, Soo-young prepared to go somewhere while carrying 2 biscuits. The following day, both Soo-young and Ho-soo were absent from school. Sung-pil inquired about their whereabouts, but Hee-jin assumed they might have skipped to go on a date. However, Sung-pil managed to come up with a convincing story, persuading Hee-jin to help him. He claimed to have seen blood on Soo-young's uniform and asked Hee-jin to take a picture of it as evidence. After investigating, Hee-jin called Sung-pil, informing him that Soo-young had been out with Jin-woo the previous night, but she didn't know where Ho-soo was, even though he had been seen talking to Soo-young earlier. Meanwhile, Jin-woo met Ho-soo to inquire about Soo-young's whereabouts, but couldn't find her. Ho-soo suspected that Soo-young might be seeking revenge at the hospital where his mom was being treated, and his suspicion was correct, because Soo-young was at the hospital and claimed to be a friend of Ho-soo's who had come to visit his mom. Meanwhile, Sung-pil called the nurse to check on Ho-soo's mom and learned that a female friend had visited her. Upon hearing this, Sung-pil immediately asked for the room number and hurried there. Shortly after, Soo-young met Ho-soo again and threatened that she had just met his mom to seek revenge for his actions. Ho-soo, fearing for his mom's life, tried to defend himself, revealing that he had saved Min-young from doing the unthinkable. Hearing this, Soo-young began to soften and agreed to inform Ho-soo about his mom's condition, but only if he could provide an antidote for Min-young. After that, Soo-young untied Ho-soo's legs and informed him that his mom was fine. Shortly after, Soo-young accompanied Ho-soo to the hospital and urged him to start his antidote experiment once he recovered. Afterwards, Soo-young met Jin-woo and explained that Ho-soo had been released, hoping he could create an antidote for Min-young. Jin-woo was upset because he still harbored a grudge against Ho-soo, but Soo-young trusted Ho-soo because of his honesty about his mother's illness, deciding not to harm his mom. The next day at school, Sung-pil approached Soo-young, asking about Ho-soo's accident and severe bleeding. Soo-young brushed it off, claiming it was a misunderstanding and that Ho-soo was fine, as she had visited him the day before. A few days later, Ho-soo was allowed to return home and began working on the antidote. However, Won-ju called, asking for more biscuit ingredients due to increased demand. At the same time, Soo-young reported acquiring a new customer. Unexpectedly, it was revealed that Sung-pil had captured Ho-soo, knowing he was the chef. Sung-pil demanded the biscuit recipe from Ho-soo, but Ho-soo pretended to be unaware. However, Ho-soo's phone call with Won-ju ended strangely, so Won-ju tried to call Ho-soo again, but Sung-pil answered the call. Unfortunately, Ho-soo's phone had a voice masking feature set up, so whoever answered Ho-soo's call couldn't hear the caller's real voice, making it impossible to distinguish who answered the phone. However, Soo-young immediately tested whether the person who answered the call was Ho-soo. Soo-young's suspicion was correct because the one who answered the call was not the real chef. On the flip side, Sung-pil informed Ho-soo that the person who originally owned the recipe was heading their way. Soon after, a knock on Hosu's door startled him. When Sung Pil opened it, they found a schoolmate surprising Sung Pil. Soo-young, who had a bad feeling about Hosu, quickly left the laundry room. Along the way, she was picked up by Min-jun, who also announced a prize for biscuit customers, prompting everyone to rush to Hosu's house to get 10 high cookies for free. This helped Hosu out. Meanwhile, Sung Pil reported to an elderly man he referred to as the chairman. Even Do-hoon turned out to be one of the chairman's subordinates. However, Sung Pil kept Hosu's identity as the chef a secret. Back to the past, when Do-hoon blew up the building, Sung Pil also went to the burning site. There, Sung Pil encountered Do-hoon, and it seemed they had known each other for a while. In truth, Do-hoon treated Sung Pil similarly to how he treated Ja-yoon, because he feared the police would uncover the drug activities in the building that exploded. Therefore, Do-hoon forced Sung Pil to kill the detective handling the explosion case. Shortly after, Soo-young and Hosu hid in the hotel for a while, thinking about the best way out. When Hosu was confused about the way out they should take, Soo-young asked for help from their friend, who was a high cookie customer named Wo-jun, as Wo-jun's father turned out to be a police chief. She asked Wo-jun to get files on Sung Pil. She also asked Jin-woo to gather information on Sung Pil. However, Sung Pil tracked them down and confronted them at the hotel. Eventually, Soo-young negotiated with Sung Pil. She wanted them to go back to school normally, while Sung Pil wanted Hosu could give him the drug recipe. Even though Soo-young knew Hosu didn't create the recipe, she still hoped he could make an antidote. Despite only stealing the recipe, Hosu managed to make high cookies that could be consumed. Soo-young gave the drug to Sung Pil, but he threatened her to hand over Hosu in exchange for Min-young, whom he kidnapped. Later, Sung Pil gave the drug recipe to the chairman as part of their deal. The chairman's subordinates then beat up Do-hoon's subordinates. After much thought, Soo-young decided to side with Sung Pil because he had Min-young hostage. However, it turned out Min-young was already awake when Sung Pil kidnapped her from the hospital but pretended to be asleep. She tried to escape, but her legs were too weak from lying down for too long. Meanwhile, Wonju and Jin-woo went to Hosu's room and suspected him of being the chef. However, Jin-woo helped Hosu keep his identity secret, despite Wonju's lingering suspicion. Hosu then met with Soo-young to discuss how to take down Sung Pil. Unbeknownst to Hosu, Soo-young planned to hand him over to Sung Pil to save Min-young. However, Soo-young hesitated due to feeling guilty towards Hosu, who trusted her, and because she also wanted to continue living as Eun-soo. On the other hand, the chairman and Sung Pil struck a deal. The chairman showed he had killed Do-hoon and wanted Sung Pil to bring Hosu. On the day of the exchange, Hosu and Soo-young went somewhere, where Soo-young secretly spiked Hosu's drink with high cookies. When Hosu drank it, he fainted, allowing Sung Pil to approach Soo-young and give him the address where Min-young was. While in the car, Hosu injected high cookies into Sung Pil. Hosu and Soo-young had previously teamed up to deceive Sung Pil. Their car eventually crashed. Meanwhile, Soo-young couldn't find Min-young at the given location, while Hosu survived the accident, but the car caught fire. Hosu then called Soo-young to inform him, and Soo-young mentioned he couldn't find Min-young either. Hosu asked Soo-young to come to the accident location, but Soo-young asked him to save Sung Pil to locate her sister. Just as Soo-young was about to go to Hosu's location, he received a call from Min-young, saying she was at the hospital. Soo-young rushed to the hospital, and finally, the siblings were reunited. However, Min-young seemed to be keeping something from Soo-young and insisted on resting once more. Meanwhile, Jin-woo tried to contact Soo-young because both Soo-young and Hosu were missing from class and unreachable. Soo-young wondered why Hosu hadn't turned up, believing he had successfully dealt with Sung Pil and sorted out the problem. Soo-young decided to skip school to look after Min-young. Later, Min-young confessed to Soo-young that she knew everything and asked her to change her phone number to avoid further disturbances. Back to the past, when Min-young tried to escape, it turned out that Do-hoon was the one who helped Min-young. Do-hoon also approached Ho-soo, who had been in a car accident. In the present, Min-young assured Soo-young that she would restore their lives to how they were before, without the chef or high cookies. However, it appeared Soo-young preferred to stay in the current world, where he was known as Un-soo. At home, Soo-young started to become addicted to high cookie again, and eventually he was tempted to eat one more high cookie. While at school, Soo-young was chased by friends who hadn't received their high cookie orders. This raised suspicions, especially for Hee-jin. Soo-young was surprised to encounter Ho-soo at school. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Min-young displayed symptoms of high cookie addiction, surprising her therapist. Sometime later, during group study in class, Ho-soo announced the end of high cookie, prompting Soo-young to demand an explanation. However, Ho-soo urged Soo-young to stop being In-soo and leave. He also contacted Won-ju, expressing his intention to close down a high cookie business. Won-ju was shocked and pleaded for the business to continue. Soon after, all high cookie customers received a farewell message, leading them to converge on Soo-young's room. Hee-jin was astonished to find everyone rummaging through Soo-young's belongings, fighting over the last remaining cookie in her drawer. Chaos ensued, especially in the laundry room, due to the sudden end of high cookie. Ho-soo handed over the remaining drugs to Uncle Gigi, revealing himself as Ho-soo's dad, before bidding farewell and leaving. Later, upon returning home from work, Soo-young discovered drugs in front of her house. She immediately called Won-ju, who hurried over with equipment. They quickly made new cookies, and Won-ju sampled them. Eventually, Soo-young and Won-ju produced new cookies and sold them at school, doubling the previous price. However, the drug supply eventually depleted. Soon after, Ho-soo approached Soo-young, questioning how they could continue selling cookies. Yet he urged Soo-young to halt the sale of high cookie altogether. Back to the past, when Ho-soo caused the accident to Sung-peel's car, Do-hoon intervened and took Ho-soo. However, the chairman intercepted Do-hoon's car on the road and took him away. The chairman also released Ho-soo and offered him a deal that he had to give up high cookie entirely and only work for the chairman. In the present, Soo-young became perplexed as her drug supply ran dry, receiving a message instructing her to visit Ho-soo's house for more drugs. Soo-young went to Ho-soo's house, only to be shocked to discover that Sung-peel was still alive and was the one leaving drugs at her door. Sung-peel acquired the drugs from Uncle Gigi and offered to continue supplying them to Soo-young as long as she was willing to collaborate with him. In the past, when Sung-peel had a car accident, a stranger came to his aid and saved him. However, when Sung-peel contacted the chairman afterward, it seemed the chairman no longer required his services, and this led Sung-peel to seek revenge. Sometime later, Soo-young found himself pursued by friends over high cookie. Desperate, she pressured Ho-soo to give her the cookie recipe, but Ho-soo refused, insisting Soo-young leave school. Feeling desperate, Soo-young skipped school the next day, leading Ho-soo to believe she might stop using high cookie. However, Soo-young had joined forces with Sung-peel, leveraging Ho-soo's mom's condition in the hospital to coerce him into giving up the recipe. Soo-young was determined to become In-soo and take on the chef's role. Finally, Ho-soo relented and wrote down his recipe for Soo-young, but before doing so, he wanted to see his mom one last time. During a video call, his mom had a seizure, prompting Ho-soo to ask Sung-peel for help. However, Sung-peel turned off the phone instead, enraging Ho-soo. In a fit of anger, he smashed his laptop to pieces before leaving Soo-young. Soo-young, witnessing the destruction of the laptop used to write the recipe, even took the broken computer with her. On the other hand, Ho-soo arrived at the hospital and sadly saw his deceased mother. Shortly after, Soo-young attended Ho-soo's mother's funeral. During the funeral, Ho-soo expressed willingness to share his recipe if Soo-young felt comfortable continuing to sell cookies. Meanwhile, Min-young struggled with her addiction to high cookie. Despite hearing the wrapper being opened, she resisted the urge to eat it, determined to break free from the addiction. Upon returning from the hospital, Soo-young received a new shipment of drugs and resumed making cookies. Despite being tempted to eat her own high cookie, she remembered Min-young's efforts to recover and refrained from indulging. While at school, Soo-young gave a high cookie to Jin-woo. Suddenly, Da-yoon appeared and blamed Soo-young for the chaos she faced at school. Da-yoon, being friends with Soo-young, became a target for high cookie customers who sought Soo-young, leading to daily bullying and threats aimed at getting Soo-young to return to school and sell high cookie. Not long after, all the cookie customers eventually followed Soo-young. This time, Soo-young distributed high cookie for free to all customers, on the condition that they wouldn't cause any more trouble. Meanwhile, Ho-soo met Min-young and informed her about Soo-young selling high cookie at school. He also revealed that Sung-pil and Soo-young were collaborating, even to the extent of harming his parent. Witnessing signs of addiction in Min-young, Ho-soo actually gave her cookies as a way of revenge against Soo-young, hoping to keep Min-young addicted. Ho-soo also called Soo-young and promised to give her the high cookie recipe at his house. Sung-pil, upon learning about it, also wanted Soo-young to share the recipe with him, but Soo-young avoided him. Back to the past, Ho-soo asked Hee-jin to take a picture of Soo-young and send it to Sung-pil. In return, Ho-soo would reveal Soo-young's true identity. While in class, Hee-jin was supposed to meet Jin-woo, but appeared to be fast asleep. Soo-young hurried home and met with Ho-soo, who confessed to placing drugs in front of Soo-young's house the previous day. Ho-soo admitted that the drugs he gave were 10 times stronger, potentially fatal to anyone who consumed them. Soo-young was deeply shocked by Ho-soo's explanation. Meanwhile, dozens of students collapsed at school simultaneously. Ho-soo also confessed to giving Min-young a high-dose high cookie as revenge against Soo-young. Frustrated, Soo-young tried to call Min-young, who fortunately answered and said that she was now at school and asked Soo-young not to come to school. Hee-jin, who knew Soo-young's true identity, confronted Min-young, but Min-young gave her a high cookie, causing Hee-jin to take it, intending to report it. Meanwhile, Soo-young still went to school, planning to make an announcement. He met Min-young, who invited her to flee, but Soo-young insisted on confessing his actions publicly. After the broadcast at school, Soo-young learned she had saved several people. Min-young urged Soo-young to flee and gave her a USB containing the high cookie recipe. On her way, Soo-young was intercepted by Sung-pil, who brought her to the laundry room. They then struck a deal that Sung-pil would tie her up and make an announcement in the dormitory about the cookie, so that no one would eat it. Then Soo-young promised to give the high cookie recipe to Sung-pil. After Sung-pil left, Min-young arrived, took the USB, and wanted to escape with Soo-young, but she chose to surrender to the police, feeling responsible for everything. In the elevator, Sung-pil was arrested by the police under the chairman's orders. Soo-young also surrendered and saw Min-young for the last time before being taken away. However, instead of going to the police station, Soo-young was taken to the empty building where the chairman awaited her. Ho-soo had confessed to giving the cookie recipe to someone else before do the unthinkable by eating it, devastating Soo-young. Later, Min-young regularly visited the police station in search of Soo-young. Now Min-young living alone and working part-time, she remembered her promise to live well and return the USB to Soo-young. While working, she encountered a woman screaming because someone had died smiling after eating a cookie. This convinced Min-young that Soo-young was alive, giving her hope of finding her. Moral lesson from the story: never give a cookie to a detective, especially if he's hungry for clues. And if someone asks for a recipe, make sure it's for cookies, not chaos.